Hello everyone. Dad is going to be doing a little run through of the materials that he uses, particularly with drawing and painting watercolour. This is predominantly aimed at your forthcoming students who'll be joining on the 28th, and if you want to sign up for the course, you can do that in the shop at rogerdean.com. But otherwise, if you're just interested in knowing what materials Dad uses, this is going to be a little run through. Are you ready, Dad? It's 11 p.m, so hurry up.
Yes, I guess. I'm going to start with pencils. This is pretty much all you'll need for most of your work is a pencil. I've got a whole load of them here.
Can you angle your computer slightly down so we can? Yeah, that's great.
Okay. They're Mars Stapler. I'm very happy with them, and given a choice, that's what I buy. But there are other equally good choices. And sad to say, there are rubbish choices as well. I was once traveling and I bought a box of very cheap pencils, and I thought, you can't tell the difference. I couldn't tell the difference, but I could. It was like the lead was full of grit, so you draw, scratch, draw. It was horrible. So I pretty much stick with these, they're Stapler. And I also pretty much always use their pencil sharpener. You can use a knife, you can use an electric sharpener, whatever. But these are incredibly practical. They can fit in your pocket. And they have one advantage, that they look as if they're for two different sizes of pencil. Well, I don't have any that fit the big one, but I have the equivalent of a spare blade. So when this one starts getting blunt, and you can tell because it starts tearing the wood instead of cutting it, you can switch it over.
And what range do you get generally in your pencils?
I tend to use 2B pretty much 95% of the time. But I've got 5B, which is very soft, and on earth is this? This is 8B. You see,
there you go, like a proper YouTube influencer.
Well, it's very clunky and it's almost like charcoal.
Are you on the right internet, Dad?
Is it not seeming proper?
It's a little bit clunky. Is that all right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Apparently. When I want to make a very light mark on the paper, when I'm just sketching in a letter that I'm going to draw on top of, 2H, but keep it light. So one pencil, get a 2B. If you want to get a range, 2B, HB, H and 2H, that's a good range. But I love the very soft ones as well, 5B. You can sketch brilliantly with that. But that's my basic pencils.
Cool. And next.
I buy a lot of 2Bs because during the course of the year, I use a lot. I guess the other thing is paper.
Yeah, a lot of people ask about what paper is good to use for watercolor paper as well.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. This is called detail paper. And what makes it interesting is it's very slightly, well, actually more than slightly, transparent. You can see through it. Hypo detail paper, which is what's in this pad underneath, is even more transparent than detail paper. Now, I buy this paper. It has a lovely feel. Pencil just slides over it. It's great. I buy it in sheets like this. This is called A2. It what do we have here? It's about 24 by 16 in rough terms. And when it's folded, it's roughly 12 by 16. And that's the size of my sketchbook. So I buy this 500 sheets at a time. I think it's something like 53 GSM grams. And I buy it and have it bound.
And that's what you predominantly use for sketching?
Yes, it's my preferred sketching paper. And I like it bound because I hate losing pages. I hate sketches, no matter how rough, when they wander off and disappear, and they always do. Now, if you want something super high quality, this is Saunders Waterford acid-free HP. HP means hot press. And what hot press is smooth. So the surface is very smooth. It's a very nice paper to draw on. And it is a watercolor paper, so it works brilliantly with watercolor. And when they're in these pads, they're glued around the edges, so they don't buckle. If you don't take them off the pad until it's thoroughly dry, it works very well.
But you can also get separate sheets if it's very heavy, like a 300 GSM hot press or cold press, and that will buckle less too, even if it's not gummed around the edges. Would you say?
True. If you really go for it and get 640 GSM, that's like a cardboard. That's high quality, and that really buckles almost not at all.
Yeah, I guess you don't want that thing where you've worked on something a while and you're noticing it start to buckle, and this is going to be something that you want to frame, and there's just no way then of getting it nicely mounted. I mean, I did it. This one over here, probably can't see from there, but I did that, and I didn't think I'd need to stretch it because I was going to be working in small bits, and then I realized about halfway through it was buckling, and when we got it framed and mounted, it sort of got a wiggle in it. So that's why the gum paper is good.
Yes, I haven't stretched paper for a long time now. I used to love working on it because it would be smooth, white, and large area. And the last time I did it, it took me hundreds of hours to finish the Asia Alpha painting. Relaya took me hundreds of hours. It's that kind of detail on very smooth paper. It's very lovely. It's very, what's the word? Sumptuous. It just feels luxurious to work on that. It's great. It feels lovely. But that kind of work is time consuming. This, by the way, is CP cold press. Not by the way is the name.
CP, not.
This has a texture. This isn't a particularly rough texture, but it's definitely a texture. You can feel on it. Much better for painting than drawing. And yet, some mysterious person has started a very interesting drawing on that one and left it.
It's a cat owl, a cowl.
There we go. What I was going to show you in the way of watercolor paints, by the way, was I had somewhere, and I can't remember it, and I need to ask you, Freya, if you know where it is. I had a box of St. Petersburg paints. I also had a box of Chinese watercolor paints. The thing about the St. Petersburg paints is they're very good, they work well, and they are not expensive. These are more expensive. These are, well, the name on it is M. Graham. That's Martin Graham. And they're made with honey as opposed to gum arabic. And that gives it a much more saturated, dense color. Very, very nice to work with.
By the way,
Um,
I think we should say the St. Petersburgs are now called White Knights, and they're a palette, not a tube.
is that right? So it's changed. Okay.
But it's the same thing.
Hmm. Okay. Just to show you some of the paints. It's going to tip over if I told you that.
And for the course, is it important that people use tubes or palettes, or does it not matter?
Absolutely doesn't matter, because when I use the tubes, I mix it up in a bowl, and at the end of the day, it'll dry. And the next day, to carry on using that color, I just add a little water and it'll dissolve again. So I'm effectively using the watercolor as if it is a palette, but the palette is in rows of little bowls. But the palette is a good way to work. I definitely would. It has the beauty of immediacy. You can carry it around with you. What happens with the bowls is I can mix for large areas. And what you need when you're doing a large area is to keep the paint from having a dry line before you put the next color. It'll dissolve, but it will show. So one of the advantages of mixing up enough paint and working on a slightly damp surface is there's no dry line. So big wide brush and work on it.
So not such an issue for detail work, but more for
Yes.
big pieces.
Yeah, I might get round to that while we do the course, but it's. I was looking to do something very different in the course. I haven't selected the exact brushes I would recommend for this course. I just have.
I can recommend for watercolor brushes, what we got when I started my scientific illustration course, we each got a set from size 0 to size 7 of series 7 paintbrushes, and I still use them. They're really great. They last for ages. They have beautiful points that stay forever. So I recommend series 7 personally.
Were they sable?
I think so.
Well, these are plastic and they do lose their points. So I buy, it is a 00. Oddly, it looks like a 2, but the size of the point makes me think we need something white behind it. It looks like it should be
Oh, that's
very
like
tiny.
a makeup brush, tiny.
Yeah. We'll make a list of them.
And
But
what
I've
are
probably,
those? What brand are those ones?
those were Pro Art, but they aren't as good as Sable. Some of those brushes I've had for 50 years, some 40, some 30. I just add to it. And there's a few in here which I kind of think of as disposable, or they haven't used them yet, and they won't last 1 or 2 paintings, and I'll need to get more. So I don't throw them away, but I don't keep them pristine. So we'll go into more detail with the brushes. But before we move on, I want to talk about ink, drawing in ink. I used to love drawing in ink, and I still do. I've done a lot of very big drawings, just in black and white, and it makes for a very dramatic, very bold image. And I like working with dip pens. And
Will you use the ink and the paint together?
you can, that requires me to explain something. If you're going, just doing that to annoy me. So this is a straight pen holder, and it has an end, which I doubt if you can see.
Oh, yeah. Sort of like a
Okay.
Phillips head.
Yes, but what that allows you to do is, I'm trying to show you the nibs. You can read what the nibs are on the side, but when I've bought them, I forget. I just look for what I'm looking for. Now, this particular pen, this particular nib, they just push in. Don't have to
Up a
push them
bit,
in.
up a bit.
Sorry, they just push in. That one's misbehaving and not pushing in.
Theoretically, though.
It's just got a problem with that. It had something else on the end. Okay. It's not pushed in the whole way. But there you go. That's more like it. Okay. Now that's got a medium fine point, and it's a drawing one. It's not a writing. Well, you could use it for calligraphy, but one normally associates pens for calligraphy have a flat end. And in this box, I have a lot that do. And I'm going to give you a list. And this is what I would use. This is Chinese ink.
And what make is that?
You know what? I don't know, but it's in all the art shops. You see it everywhere. It looks like it's Senelia. Maybe that may.
Can you hold it up again so we can have another look?
Yeah.
Encre de Chine à la pagode.
That's Chinese ink in French, I think.
Hmm.
The bottom word is the one I think is the name.
Okay, we'll put that in the notes. I can't read
Yeah.
that.
This is new. I used to choose always Indian ink because Indian ink is three things about it that I liked. It's super dense, glossy, waterproof, and allegedly permanent. The biggest drawback of it is it's allegedly, and it probably is true, at least it was once true, is it was based on a lacquer, and the lacquer was made from ground up beetles. So you might not might not feel it nice to be working in something made of ground up beetles. Whether you feel sorry for the beetles or just feel it is unaesthetic. But that is the history of Indian ink, but it is very good. And it has the advantage, although I would always test it, if you do a drawing in Indian ink, you can put a watercolor over it without the ink running. But always test for that. If I'm doing lettering or architectural drawings, I might use these. Can they be seen?
Yeah, are they rotring?
That's what they are. They're rotary.
Rotring. And what size would you use? Like a 0.5?
This one is 0.5, which is quite thick. This is 0.18, which is quite thin. The ink is not waterproof, so you can't do watercolor on top of it. And the line is very mechanical. You can vary it, but not elegantly.
Can you put watercolor over the Chinese ink?
You should be able to. When I was a student, we used to shade things in Chinese ink. We used to grind our own. It would come in a thick stick, and you would have a slate bowl, which you put water in, and you'd spend ages grinding it until you got a nice thick base. Now, a lot of people lost patience, and you could tell those who lost patience because all their shading was very thin, and they'd have to redo it and redo it and redo it. But it, you know, you can, adjust the density that way. And again, I say theoretically, you'll need to check, to test, always test, but you can put watercolors on top of it. So we would, sorry?
I said cool.
Good.
It's 10 past 11, Dad.
Oh, okay. But I think that's pretty much it. I've got one last thing to say though. If you buy ink like this, it comes in much larger bottles. It's not a practical proposition using it. If you bought ink in something like this, yeah, that's more practical. That's a very good sized bottle to use ink. But when I'm buying this, I use ink in these things. They cost about, I don't know, 100 for £1.
Shot glasses.
Yeah, they're plastic. They're very, very cheap. But I would absolutely 100% recommend you do not use these where you're working because you'll knock them over. Even breathing hard, you'll knock them over. So I've got something super grand, which is a Victorian silver inkwell. It's very heavy and it has a glass liner in it actually. It should come out, but is being reluctant. But these stand in it perfectly. So I can work on that. And then when I'm done and it's dried and become horrible, I just dispose of the liner. But this stays.
Perhaps a good resolution that people might have at home is a glass shot glass.
Yeah.
Or a sake cup.
What you want, going back to this is on the verge of risky, overbalance, but you need something with a very small diameter so that, you know, when you've only got a little ink left, it still has enough to cover the nib. When you have something bigger, that won't happen.
Right.
And when this size or bigger, it absolutely won't happen. So I'm going to give you a list of what I've said, and we'll put the list up. But this is a class that will start simple. I've got dozens of these. I took one at random, so I don't even know what's in it. Okay. Drawings, notes, drawings. But it's a great way to.
And that's just a small moleskin sketchbook with cartridge paper.
No, it's not cartridge paper. I'm not sure what the paper is. It's thin.
When you show us, can you hold it for a second so the camera can focus?
Yeah. So it's a mix of notebook, sketchbook, whatever. It's very handy, eminently portable. And that and a pencil does 90% of my work. I'll talk more about the sketchbooks though when we start on the first day, but I'll give you a list of materials.
So this covers everything, but essentially paper, brush, pencil, sharpener, watercolor palette or tubes, ink and ink pen. Essentially.
I would say the essence of this course is drawing and coloring rather than painting.
Okay. And yeah, and we're going to be doing in the vein of those Asia Alpha Tales from Topographic Oceans in Relaya. So that's what we're expecting everyone. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, don't forget they took me hundreds of hours, so we're not going to knock one up every week.
But over 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6, okay.
So I hope that helped everybody and answered a lot of your questions. Again, if you want to join the course, it's on the website. And if you're not joining the course, hopefully that was some good insights into the basics of the things that you need for drawing and painting. Anything else? Are we good?
No, I'm going to put more information than that. That was an outline. I'll
Okay.
put more detail. And you know, I can't tell you what these nibs are without a magnifying glass, but I'll choose the ones I really like using and tell you what they are.
And maybe you could just take some pictures on your phone and we can put those in the comments.
Indeed.
Because
Indeed.
sometimes that can be more helpful for people in a shop, just to have a little something to look at and show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop recording, but stay there.
I'm getting my day's orders now.
There you go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.